Adrian here. In whatever way you can, let's make sure that we're supporting USARC. They're fighting to keep our reptile keeping rights. It's getting really crazy out here with all the laws passing and white lists being approved. West Coast, man, you know where it's at. Best place to relax and kick back underneath the palm trees. Talk about reptiles and spit facts to see where we rock the grease khakis. I don't need no AI intro because I've been at the style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. Yo, what's up? What's up? What it do? YouTube. It's your boy Adrian right here, back episode number 18, man. West Coast Reptiles. West Coast. It's been about 7 months since my last episode. I've just been trying to stay subscribed. It's tough doing this content. Do it strictly for the love of the reptiles. It does take a lot of time and effort to be a consistent podcaster. So to salute to all those consistent podcasts out there. I was running every 2 weeks, so I wouldn't get burnt out. And like I said, took a little break, and who knows when my next episode will be and stuff. But it's always good to tap in and share updates. Like I said, lots happen, and want to give a shout out, man, to Morph Market and Trap God at Trap Talk with the Trap Talk Reptile Network. And he's got another clutch just dropped, man, a banger, another red dominant. You know what he's doing over there, man. Really holding it down for the West Coast, man. MJ from Trap Exotics. We got Garrick House of Blue, Luke Snake Walker, Aiden Bradley, SoCal Biox, and the list goes on. But salute to all the West Coast, Cali, chondro breeders, even homies up in Canada, Jason Binab, killing it up there in West Coast chondros. And salute to all the homies, man. And we're right here, like I said, episode number 18. We're going to get into some clutch updates of that green tree python clutch that I had that dropped. But first, I want to give a quick update. I got an emerald tree ball. She's still gravid, about 100 days post ovulation shed. And I got 14 eggs in the incubator. Sorry, 6 eggs, 14 days left of ball python eggs in the incubator. Hoping to hit some visual desert ghosts with that. And still got some ball pythons pairings going. Still, it's getting a little later into summertime now, but still got some pairings going on some stuff. I have a green tree, another green tree from Mauricio Ledero that might be gravid. She's been refusing food after several locks, and what I saw was somewhat an ovulation before Trap Fest. Trap Fest was great this year, man. Met a lot of people, man. Bill Stiegel, saw all the usual Trap Fest homies, and still a great opportunity. Got to meet Greg Maxwell, Garrick House of Blue was there, Marshall Mendez, Nick from the Chondro Vault, a lot of heavy hitters, man. Juan at Life's Rad Chondros, tons of people, man. There was a big turnout for Trap Fest. Wouldn't miss it for a second. And thank you, MJ, for all that love and hospitality. Congratulations on your beautiful family, man, and all that you got going on over there. A big inspiration to me in the game, man. And now we'll jump into the clutch, and how it's going, how it went, and all that. So we'll go through the Instagram here, and we can look at some stuff. Or if you're tapping in, catching the replay, you're just listening at work. Don't worry, we'll make it listen friendly as well. So don't feel like you got to miss out on anything. It's just going through my reviewing some posts that I made on Instagram to kind of see the timeline and stuff. But feel free, and really appreciate everyone again for tapping in and sharing these experiences, so we can all learn to grow together. This is just me from a new keeper's perspective. Uh, my first ever green tree hatching, and so what we got here is we have. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, yeah, it's blown up good now on the. I'm just gonna go on the big share right here. So this is the female that I acquired. I acquired this female Oceanside here, and this is one of the very first pictures that I posted of her. So this was back in August 4th, 2025, almost a year ago. So it's 10 months ago is when I acquired her, and in that time I've been able to get a clutch from her. So she was posted on Morph Market as a 10-year-old female Biak, and yeah, so, I acquired a 10-year-old female on Morph Market. The guy was a San Diego, Chondros or San Diego. It was, something his name was, like, James O'Connor or something like that on Morph Market, with San Diego. His Morph Market handle was, like, San Diego Chondros or, something along those lines, and he was pretty cool. I met up with him and was, able to acquire this female, knowing all the risks that come with that, and was just willing to take a risk. And this is when I upgraded her to her enclosure that she's still in now, that I made myself right here. This is pretty much a 3 by 2 by 2 PVC enclosure that I made from scratch, and was able to upgrade her pretty quickly. That got me into upgrading mode, just upgrading everything, and making. I banged out about sorry, 6 3 by 2 by 2s or so. And so that's the female. I acquired her back in August and upgraded her. See, that picture was August 7th. So 3 days later, I threw her in a 3 by 2 by 2, and then I had that male that I got on Craigslist a while back that sired that first clutch that went bad for me. Uh, his name, I named him San Isidro. So he was the seller listed him as a BAC on Craigslist, but we'll check him out in a second. So here's some more pics of Oceanside. So this is what I thought after many locks. Um, I'm sorry. Actually, the male was not San Isidro. The male was a Maniquari male. So here's the picture of the pairing. So yeah, this was the I paired her to the yellow Maniquari male, and I acquired him through someone who got out of the hobby. So this is some of the locks that I have. So this was in October. So a couple months later, she came in pretty big. She came in at a good size. She was maybe pushing kind of overweight. You could say she had some like stretch marks on her and stuff. But she was definitely a good weight. The guy was it just didn't fit in his projects anymore or something like that. So a couple months later, about 2.5 months later, I recorded this lock after acquiring her, just feeding her, checking her temperament. You know, um, I I got I just kind of operate a little unconventional and stuff, and like I said, I'm just kind of willing to take those risks and do things a little differently. And like there's no set in stone way. Of course, there's the textbook way and how you should go about things. And I just try different ways and different options, and I've been through a lot, so I've kind of overcome that. Not overcome, but I've I know I've learned a lot, and you start to kind of grow thick skin, and a lot of people know what I mean. Um, when people have been through the ringer, you start to just I don't know, just you kind of know that things are going to happen, and no matter what you do, and what I'm kind of trying to get at is here is like no matter what you do, something's going to happen. You do everything right, something's going to happen. It's always going to happen. It's inevitable. So why not just try to do it and get it uh just jump right into it, and just get it. Um so this is her, what I thought was an ovulation here. So I'm saying, dear Chondro gods, hear my prayer. So I can see some swelling on her, what's looking to be like an ovulation. Like I said, she was a bigger female, so it was not as noticeable, but I knew that something was going on because I'm praying to the Chondro gods to hear my prayer here. This was in November. So a month after that lock, I got this kind of swelling here. I think she went off food as well. I saw some more. She was always on the cold side as well. She was always on the cold side. Got a bunch of locks on her, and then boom, all of a sudden, I see her on the warm side. And I'm like, oh, and I've kind of been through it before. I've seen this before with the previous female, and I'm like, huh, I've never seen her on the warm side before. So she was a ferocious eater upon acquiring her, and then a few months later, get some meals in, get some locks in, and then boom, she's swelling up. She's going on the warm side. She's refusing food. All the good signs you want to see. And right here was pretty much when this was a few days later. So this building was in November 25th, and then November 30th, 5 days later, she's still building on the warm side, still on the warm side here. So this is a couple weeks later. She's starting to still kind of fill out, not really knowing what I was looking at there. I was kind of counting myself out. I like I said, I thought I saw something going on, but then for some reason I thought she reabsorbed. Like I said, you hear a lot about just expect the work, expect the worst, and you'll never get disappointed. So I was pretty much like, oh, she's probably not going to go. She reabsorbed or something like that, and her body weight was throwing me off. It's hard to tell. Not so obvious all the time is is what I'm kind of seeing here. You really got to be in tune with your animals and be observant. Notice these ovulations. I mean, obviously she was off food, uh, and she was on the warm side. She was building, swelling up, and for some reason I thought she just got thinned out, and I thought she reabsorbed. But I guess that's what can happen when females go gravid. They'll ovulate, and then they'll kind of thin out after that ovulation, and it'll be very subtle that you can tell that they have eggs inside of them. And like I said, I thought she reabsorbed, and she was kind of showing behavior like she wanted to eat again. And I actually think I fed her at at least once, maybe twice after her ovulation, just thinking she reabsorbed and she wasn't going to go. And she ended up shedding. Oops, um, she ended up shedding, and she got a stuck eye cap. And so she got these big old bug eyes and stuff. And when she had that stuck eye cap, that's when it triggered me to soak her. That was pretty much the only reason I soaked her. If I knew, knowing what I know now is like plan everything's gravid. If you see a female, if you got locks on a female, you see them swell up, then they start refusing, they go on the warm side. After that next shed, you should expect to see some eggs, and that's what it also says in Greg Maxwell's book. Along something along those lines is, if you've been pairing and you kinda see some reproductive signs, after that next shed, you can expect to have some eggs, don't get hit with that surprise clutch. I actually got hit with a surprise clutch. I couldn't believe it. Like I said, I thought she'd reabsorb. I'd already been feeding her, slightly, and that's what I came back to was a surprise clutch. But like I said, she shed, and she had a stuck eye cap, so I soaked her, and then almost like a week after that soak is when she laid the eggs. So here's this picture here of her, that the eggs that she laid, and she's like a nice hormonal blue, Biak, yellow female, and I see BX with these looks from time to time. They look really nice. I really like this look. Super cool. Probably the bluest green tree python that I have in my collection, and it's due to hormonal blue. Obviously, it's not an inheritable trait, per se, or it's not a genetic thing. It's just a female hormonal thing. And yeah, so I gave her that soak, coincidentally, just because she had a stuck eye cap of a shed, which I know now was her prelay shed. Um, like I said, total rookie move. I thought she reabsorbed, and she was kind of acting like she wanted to eat again. Didn't think she was gonna go, but she went. So like I said, just always expect if you're seeing these signs, and then she goes in a shed. Prepare to have like an egg box in there or something. And as you could see, she just came down. I guess I came home from work one day, and the lights were all off in my room, and I see what looks like cotton balls next to this female, and I'm like, I turned the light on, and oh, there's eggs. I couldn't believe it. So she laid 11 eggs, and she was egg bound with 9 eggs. So another female. I've yet to have a female green tree python not be egg bound after laying a clutch, and I think that that's a huge accomplishment for someone to have. Is just for them. You always hear it, even if they're all slugs, whatever it be. At least they pass all those eggs, and they get them out of their system, and they can just boom, boom, bounce back and breed again another year. So that first female went egg bound with 20 eggs, a Biak female. She was fully egg bound, didn't lay anything, and passed away. Very inexperienced, expecting, I was at first, and then I thought she reabsorbed, but apparently she didn't. So I came back home from work and saw she laid 11 eggs, and she was egg bound with 9. So another BX female and another 20 egg, potential. So that's a pattern that I see with these older BX females. I had 20 eggs before, egg bound, and then here was 20 total. She laid 11 and had 9 stuck. So I guess we'll go through the egg bound situation, and how I treated that, because so if we back up a little bit, when I saw this clutch, I saw her, and it looked like she was still kind of pushing eggs out from what I can see. I think she was still having contractions and all that. So I know that if you leave the eggs in for too long, they'll be harder to remove them from the animal. The animal will have more of a chance of passing away. And what I did, I think, was I think I had my local breeder come over and help me out, and he I think he was able to palpate one egg out, or I'm not sure if I did it on my own, or if he came over and helped me. But yeah, it's hard to to remember. But basically, what happened was the egg was stuck in the oviduct, and I got the egg to the first egg, what I believe, to prolapse with the oviduct a little bit, the oviduct prolapse slightly, and I was able to make a small incision after talking to some OGs and to some buddies. I just made a small incision on on the end of the oviduct, what I believe to be was the end of the oviduct, and we were able with the local breeder, that pet store owner that I have, who's been very helpful to me and experienced many years of reptile breeding, snake breeding. We were able to palpate all 9 of those eggs out. And prior to that, I actually went over to another buddy's house and got a quick ultrasound on the female and got like an egg count and saw exactly, okay, there's like about 8 eggs inside of her, ended up being 9. And, so that ultrasound really helped out. So if you got a buddy with an ultrasound, you think a female might still have some eggs inside of her, you can ultrasound them, even get a count of how many eggs you think are in there. Because it could be tough with green trees. They're small eggs and they're hard to see. So able to palpate all 9 of those eggs out. Very minimally invasive procedure of just making a small incision on the end of that oviduct. Every situation is going to be different. The eggs could be stuck higher up on the oviduct, and it could be both oviducts. I'm not exactly sure of all the anatomy and things like that and how that works, but made a small incision, got those 9 eggs out. I was really trying to do my best and play it safe, so I did a saline flush in the cloaca and just kind of flushed out with some saline wash, some sterile saline solution, and kind of flushed it out a little bit. Nothing was like really crazy. Um, you know, there wasn't a ton of blood or anything like that. Just wanted to get a nice fresh, do as best I can. I think I gave her 1 dose of Baytril, maybe 2 doses of Baytril as an antibacterial antibiotic to prevent any infection, and just gave her some time to chill. I think I may have removed the perches for a week or two, and then introduced the perches again, and was just gonna see how it went. She was still having contractions for a while after that. Yeah, she was still, scrubbed out her enclosure really good, washed her off, scrubbed her down, soaked her. Like I said, saline flush in the cloaca, doses of Baytril, and she was. I was trying to get her back on food and feeding, and she just wasn't really going for it for a while. And then all of a sudden, she just snapped back into gear. So here I have a post of her eating her first meal after the recovery. So Oceanside ate her first meal after recovering from 9 retained eggs 2 months ago. Eating the same night I separated her neos. What an amazing experience to go full circle. Huge shout out to everyone who helped make this recovery happen. If we back up a little bit here and we see that timeline of when this clutch was laid. So this was in January. I was taking these pictures back. This was in December. So it happened really quick. Went from ovulation here in November to she's gravid in December and she's laying the clutch in January, in late January is when she laid the clutch. So about 2 months from the ovulation, 60 days is when I saw that clutch be dropped, and then the clutch hatch here. So this was the clutch that I was able to get from her, and there were so we had now if got the eggs, 11 eggs, was able to separate the eggs, pull them apart, and place them in the egg box. Might have might have a picture of the egg box set up. I don't know. Um, but was able to separate those eggs, get them in the egg box, get them in the incubator. There was 11 eggs. I candled them, and they were all looking somewhat decent, pretty decent. And the there was 4 eggs that went bad right off the rip, and uh, just out of curiosity, they went bad, so I opened them up, and a couple were, I think it was like 50% were infertile. They didn't even have an embryo inside of them. I think the other 2 eggs were fertile. Um, just not sure not sure what happened. Maybe it's just weren't meant to make it or something like that. And then that was just a few days. Usually, if the eggs go bad, they're gonna go bad within the first like 2, 3, 4, 5 days. You'll really start to know that they're gonna go bad. So glad I was able to separate the eggs, so that way I can separate those eggs that went bad and just get them out of the egg box and see what was going on with those. And then I had another egg that developed a pretty serious window on it, and I think I tried just foot powder first, and then I went with liquid bandage. I was just looking up things what what solutions you can do for eggs with windows. So I tried some liquid bandage and stuff like that. And that egg was questionable. So now, like I said, 4 went bad out of the 11. That left me with 7, and then the seventh one that I'll say, I separated that into a different egg box because I knew it was questionable. And when I saw the first pip, I I cut all the eggs. About a couple hours later, I just did the small V as said in the More Complete Chondro book by Greg Maxwell. I just did the small V flap, and I cut the entire clutch of 6 eggs and the seventh one. Um, well, the first one pipped, and after the first pip, a couple hours later, I just cut the entire clutch, and they all came out. They all just poked their heads out like almost immediately after opening the egg. Most of them emerged immediately. Um, you hear a lot of stories about. I was talking to a few people about how the eggs can be tough for the neos to pip themselves, and so I didn't really want to take any chances. I thought I'll just cut the clutch, and it says in the book to cut them. Greg Maxwell cuts his clutches all on day 49. I think they hatched it at about day 53 or 54, 55. They were a little later because during the incubation process, and I know we're kind of jumping around here, guys, so bear with me. I'm trying to skim through it. But during the incubation process, I have a Helix thermostat on my incubator, and something happened where the fuse blew on the Helix thermostat. There was a small cylindrical fuse inside of the Helix thermostat. I'm sure people who are familiar with Helix thermostats know what I'm talking about. But I just had so what happened there, the thermostat blew out, so the heat uh was off in my incubator for about a night. It probably blew in the middle of the night, and then um it it I was able to replace the thermostat temporarily with a Inkbird thermostat. Definitely not ideal. That's why I like to have my Helix thermostat. It's definitely works great for incubators. I have my pulse control Helix thermostat on there. So I was able to temporarily replace that with an Inkbird thermostat for the time being until I got a fuse I could take that other thermostat apart, find which fuse I need, and replace that fuse and get that Helix back on there as soon as possible. So, but that being said, there was no heat for about maybe 8 hours, you could say, maybe 8 hours, no heat. When I got there, when I found out and I checked the thermostat in the incubator, the thermometer, it was reading about 60 degrees. So this was in the middle of January. It's pretty cold ambient and stuff. And, the fans are running, but the heat is off. So the fans are cooling the incubator down and then the heat is off. So that's dropping your temperatures even more due to wind chill. But uh, all that said and done, uh, replaced the fuse, got the thermostat back on there. It might have delayed the clutch a little bit. I looked, I was like, "Oh man, I can't believe it, dude. I got a clutch and then the thermostat blew out. I can't believe it, man. Just my luck." But I was looking up about it, losing my mind, looking up on forums and experiences about thermostats blowing fuses or, temperatures dropping during incubation. And I feel was that it's better to get too hot because I think that that will kill your eggs faster is for temperatures to get too hot than for them to drop low. So it might have delayed the clutch from hatching a few days, but sure enough, they hatched on like day 53 or something like that in March. It was like March 15th was the day that they hatched, and um, incubation just went smooth. I think I incubated at 88 straight bake. I might have temperature dropped on the last few days, or I might have dropped it a degree on the last few days, or after they pipped, um, which wouldn't have too much effect. As far as the egg box goes, I had a, snap-on lid, about 6 quart tub or so, snap-on lid, and I had air holes, I believe, throughout the entire incubation. I believe I was over straight water with air holes, and I did use press and seal. So right now, my new go-to is with what I have and what I have to work with is snap-on lid tubs, like the Target tubs with the snap-on lid, and so they're not airtight; they're just snap-on lids. And I'll do the snap-on lid, press and seal, and either vermiculite, really damp vermiculite, or straight water with air holes throughout the whole process. That's just me. That's just what I do. And I even have some holes drilled in my incubator itself on the sidewalls to let some fresh air come into the incubator. I'm a big fan of ventilation, airflow. You open up that incubator and it's just kind of smelling a little funky. Like sometimes, I mean, you guys all know what I'm saying. If it's you got eggs in the incubator and um, it doesn't smell pleasant all the time. It starts to kind of just develop that eggy smell. And I like to have some fresh air in there, oxygen. Um, so I drilled some small holes on the side of my incubator and put some like fine mesh screen, so no like uh, gnats or anything will get in there, anything like that. And it's been working out great. I've been loving the results so far. I think I talked to another fellow keeper who has a hole in his incubator as well. It's a really small hole. It really doesn't. The temps stay stable. All it does is just allow a little bit of fresh air to come in, and that air not to be so stagnant inside. So I was running a wet chamber incubator with the press and seal air holes, and so the air holes they don't when you have a wet chamber incubator. Even the press and seal probably is overkill. It just I've switched things around. Luckily, I was able to play with some ball pythons and get incubation experience with them. But that's what's been I've had the most success with is because when I just did press and seal with no air holes over straight water, I didn't have much success. So pretty much what I changed was I did press and seal with air holes and vermiculite or straight water and a lot of ventilation. And I up added a fan into the incubator and I added those air holes as well because I was getting mold. So I'm not a fan of just uh, press and seal with no air holes, and that's just me. That's been working for me. So that was kind of my egg box setup. A grate over some legs over suspended over water. And yeah, we got the pip, and then I took those out. I got some Cambro tubs, some small Cambro tubs. I think it's like a 6 by 12 or 6 by 12 by 15 Cambro tub. Fits in the incubator pretty good, and uh, put the eggs onto the moss. I had some damp moss on there. Uh, I didn't introduce the perch until a little later, I think, until I think they were all out of the egg or something like that. The idea of not introducing the perch right away is to get them to crawl on the moss and kind of get some of that egg fluid off of them with that moss will kind of clean them up a little bit. And then I would introduce the perch and then a very shallow water dish. And then left them there until they shed. I left them in the incubator until they shed out, and then I separated them, I believe. I may have separated them. I may have saw the first one shed out, and then I separated the rest of them. I can't recall off the top of my head. It was a while ago. But there is benefits. There's pros and cons to both. Like usually with like a ball python clutch, I'll leave the entire clutch in the incubator until they shed. It's not as critical. But with the green trees, it's kind of nice to know which ones have shed and which ones haven't. It's a little harder to tell, and it could be so it gives you more like record keeping wise a better idea of what's going on with each individual animal if you separate them uh, more immediately. Um, but it's for me like the best thing is just to keep them in the incubator for a little longer, let them shed out. They got nice humidity, stable temperatures. So there's pros and cons. I'm not, oh, you it's a hard yes or no with anything. I'm still kind of up, still learning what I like to do best. And yeah, we got those out, got them in there, after the sheds, pretty much got them in their rack system, and was time to start feeding trials pretty soon after that, and just went with the smallest pinkies that I had, just smallest live pinks. I was freezing the smallest pinks, the red hots, as soon as I could, just to have some stock in case I didn't have any available. Because that's the thing when you have the baby neos, they're very small, so it's difficult to get a prey item to the size that they require. So we don't always have red hot pinks on tap every single day. So it's nice to have some frozen just in case you need backup. But I always like to try to just start live. That's my go-to is just feeding live. I think live is the best, and in my opinion, if you can acquire live feeders. So I started out with live. I think I might have done a slightly bigger than a red hot pink, and was quite surprised to see a few neos took it. And so back to the Greg Maxwell book is you got to be aggressive with the neos. You got to just hit them on the back of their neck, hit them on their side, and then put it to their mouth. And then if they don't take, just do it again, rinse and repeat. Try poking them, prodding them with the neo in different spots, kind of beating them up. You hear that phrase, and it's true. You got to beat the shit out of the neo. You got to be aggressive. You can't be scared, and you're pretty much training. And these are all references to Greg Maxwell's book. Man, he was spot on. I pretty much followed it to a T, and he's got it all right there. It's all there, assist feeding everything. So you got to be aggressive with the neos. You're pretty much training the neos how to eat and that the pinky is food because they're not eating pinky rats in the wild. They're not eating red hot pinks on tap in the wild. So you're pretty much training them that, hey, this is a pinky, this is food, and this is how you strike it, this is how you swallow it. So you'll have a few different scenarios, and of course, the banger of the clutch that I hatched of the six neos, the which were all yellow. The banger, the nice patternless one, was a runner, and so I had to assist feed that one from the start. And I was thinking how to do it. I just went back to Greg Maxwell's book, and he said use a whole pinky. He said that he just uses whole pinkies, and it makes sense because it's more of a complete prey item. You can get that whole pinky down, and um, it teaches them faster instead of doing like a mouse leg or a pink head. Doing that whole pinky, like it's like, all right, well, this is a whole pinky. This is what it looks like. This is how you swallow it. This is how you have to swallow it. And it gets them, I feel like, on track quicker when you're going to give them something that you're actually going to offer them, opposed to something that you're not, like a pink head or a tail or a leg or whatever. Um, I think it was about four, I think about 4 or 5 out of the six, ate pretty good right away. One was a runner, unfortunately. Had to assist feed that one. And when the assist feeding, um, usually with ball pythons, I all I have to do is get the prey items head in their mouth, and after a while they'll start to swallow it. However, with the neonate chondros, what I've found is that you need to sometimes, or from my experience so far, is that pinky has to be far down a lot further for them to actually swallow it. That they'll just keep trying to spit it out if you don't get it down there far enough. They don't have that natural instinct kick in, like compared to like a ball python where they'll just like, all right, well, I'm gonna swallow this prey item now. It's been in my mouth for 2 minutes. But if you leave it in the neos, from what I've seen, if you leave it in their mouth, just like the head, pretty much in their mouth, they will spit it out, or they'll sit there until who knows when, and they won't swallow it most of the time. But I have had an exception when you start to get them going, or if you've had a feeder that like he's taking food and then boom, he just shuts off. He doesn't want to eat anymore. It's like, all right, well, I gotta get something in you. So I'll sometimes have that luck where it's like you just assist feed them a little bit, and then they wrap it on their own, and then they swallow it on their own. So it's kind of hit and miss. Every meal is different. Every situation is all there, and yeah, it's been fun. It's been really fun raising up the neos. So they're about 3 months old now. They were born on March 15th, and they're about 3 months old. We can share my screen again here. Jump back over to Instagram after I've been yapping for a while. But yeah, so they're about 3 months old, and they've some of them taken about 8 meals or so, and really really nice neos. They're not they're not the nicest. Uh, uh, I mean, they're not the full solid dorsal stripe. They're not blazed neos, but they're not super low pattern neos. They're pretty good. I'm really happy with the results, and I the pairing that I was going for was the female has a decent amount of white, and the male had a decent amount of white. So the pairing again was a yellow maniquari male that had nice white and blue, to a female Biak who was hormonal blue with a lot of white. So this pairing, I'm looking for maybe some nice white speckled animals. Obviously yellows, some nice blue dorsal markings with some white. patterning. So this was one of the bangers right here. Number two was the banger of the clutch, in my opinion. He had the most solid dorsal striping and the nicest, boldest markings on him. And number three also has some nice dorsal. Um, they're all pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. Excited to see what happens in the future. So I have been talking to Phenome, and I did send in some adult sheds to help them get going. I sent as many as I had, and I will be using Phenome to shed test. Actually, one of the ones I was waiting for to shed out just shed out today. So pretty soon here, I'll be sending some sheds out to get those sex tested at Phenome. I have a feeling that I might be female heavy, so that's pretty interesting. Be cool to have some females that I've produced. Captive bred females. You could never go wrong. And yeah, so pretty much, yeah, they've got the some good. Had a few little small prolapses here and there. So the yolk shits, like when they first hatch and they have their yolk like kind of runny shits. I saw like very small little kind of very small little prolapsy things. But they everything's fine right now. There's no prolapsing issues. Actually, I had one with kind of a decent prolapse. I was able to get back in with the sugar reduction and very little just massaging it back in, and it actually just shed. I actually just posted a picture of this one, so um, it was a story. I don't know if it's still up on my story here. I don't believe so, but it shed and shit. It took a massive shit and it shed and no prolapse. So hopefully massive shit, and that was the same animal that had the most decent prolapse on it. So I was very happy to see that it didn't reoccur in that moment, and it had another shed and a nice massive shit. So that was great. It's the small wins, guys. It's small wins like that. So I've had another pairing here. So anyway, and the female, like I said, the female Oceanside, she's doing great. In this picture here, that's the first meal she's ate. When I brought her meals to separate them, and she's gaining weight now. She's smashing food, 3 meals since her reproductive cycle, and a life-saving decision. And um, she's doing great. Saved her life so far. And I'll try to just for an experiment to see. I'll try to pair her again in the future. Obviously give her probably a couple of years off, and but just to see if that just basically for science is to see if that incision really affects things. I've heard of people removing an oviduct and still having a smaller size clutch in the future. So I'm curious to see how the oviduct heals and what's really going on there. And I've got another pairing that I was working on here with San Isidro. So San Isidro is a male Utarensis, uh, according to Patrick Holmes, and I believe so as well. He looks like a very old yellow male Utarensis that I acquired on Craigslist. Um, the, the seller said he was a BIAC, but I think he got it in a trade and didn't know anything about green tree pythons because, as you can see, this is definitely not a BIAC. It's and he has a white tail like a Utarensis. So Patrick describes this as an eastern type animal or Utarensis. So it's a huge male, and he is a stud of a breeder. So I've been getting those 6, which is Mauricio Lutero or Lutero G, Lu- Lutero Lutero GTP, and been getting a lot of locks with San Isidro and ML2106, and she is a captive bred Jayapura Sarong female, yellow. I'm just working with the males that I got, and I have a red male right here, Brentwood. This is a red male Biak. Hasn't figured out the breeding yet, so he's still kind of settling in. Hasn't figured out the breeding yet, but I definitely want to get some pairings of her dorsal. And but I have been pairing just right before Trap Fest 2026 on May 16th, so almost a month ago. I see what looks like many locks with San Isidro. He was putting in the work, separating, feeding, breeding, separating, feeding, breeding, and it really looks like an ovulation here. Like I said, it could just be subtle sometimes. I got faked out last time. I'm not going to get faked out again. As soon as she goes in the shed, she has her shed. I'm gonna, introduce the lay box and expect a clutch. Um, it's now she's not as big as this. And she's gone off food. She's refusing. She's not on the warm side. However, it is pretty warm in her enclosure as it is, but she's still on the cool side. But she's usually a ferocious eater, looking for food every night, and she hasn't looked for food since pretty much I've seen this and a little bit before that. So it's looking hopeful that she may become. I see a swelling in her midsection there. For anyone who's not following along on the Instagram uh, display here, the review that I'm doing, and then I'm looking at Gardena here, which is the gravid emerald tree boa that I have. She's about 100 days post ovulation shed, so she's still big. She was big. She's still big. I'm definitely noticing it's starting to take a toll on her. I'm making sure she's staying hydrated and doing the best I can to accommodate her. And but that's basically the gist of things, guys. You know, so I went over how I got the animals, when I started pairing, um, things that I made mistakes on, which I thought she had reabsorbed, but she didn't, and then the egg binding situation again, and how I dealt with that, and how I actually was able to save the female this time with help of many of the community. And I really appreciate the community. Everyone's been great. I'm very humble. I'm not trying to say you can come in here and do shit right away. No, you're gonna take hit after hit after hit. I've in the very short time that I've been keeping green trees, I've I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot, and it's good because you learn. Because when stuff comes easy, you don't really learn much. And now I've gotten a lot of experience in a short amount of time. Nobody. I'm not an expert by any means, but you you know I have a great appreciation, and I am not saying this is easy, man, dude. I've been through the ringer. Expect nothing, bro. Expect nothing. Um, yeah, like I said, just you know, it's all up to the chondro gods at the end of the day. But I went over some mistakes that I made. Maybe some things I would do differently. Things that I learned. Establishing my first clutch, how that went for me, how incubation went for me, how I overcame that thermostat failure, and it still worked out. It was there was very little info on that. Like, hey, my thermostat fuse blew out. Like, will your eggs still hatch? Well, like, yes, they will if you catch it in a decent amount of time. Within maybe I'd say 24 hours, maybe 18 hours, 12 hours. That might be the window, and Yeah, that's pretty much a wrap. You know, the female's doing great. Oceanside, very happy about that. You know, I have the adult female and I have her babies, and you know I'm able to just keep it full circle. That's the worst is when you lose an adult female. It's nothing worse than losing an adult and or losing any animal for that sake. But happy to still have the mom and her babies all here together and the dad. And yeah, really still just like I said, got a lot of stuff still going. I just been staying down and grinding, man, putting in the work so I could come back and share my experiences and speak on stuff that I've done. And thought it would be good to have a little solo episode, catch up with you guys. So I really appreciate your time. If you haven't, man, smash the like. If you think anyone could benefit from this episode, let them know. Uh, I'm, you know, we're always here, man. Reach out to me on Instagram, West Coast Reptiles. It's your boy Adrian, man. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you. Have a great night.